people really do keep me on their toes with their sewing requests. So today we're turning this 2XL sweater, which is huge, as you can see, into something that is gonna look decent on size 4. Yeah, so if you want to see how we do that, mind you, we're shortening the hem, we are shortening the sleeves, but we're keeping the original kind of cuff sleeve as well. So yeah, if you want to see how we do that, then make sure you keep on watching. So excuse the markings, there was a tiny bit of trial and error, but to get to this point, what you want to do is mark on yourself first and foremost where you want the top to come up to. Then you want to fold that shirt or that sweater in half, and you want to mark up from the bottom, if that's easier, the length that you want to take the top up by. For me, I think that's about 10 inches. And then what I ended up doing, as you can see, the bottom is a bit curvy, and I wanted to make sure that it was a straight hem all the way around. So I just kind of tapered off the bottom a bit to make sure that it was a very straight line, and then I measured from that point up by, again, I think it was 10 inches, just to mark how much I want to take the sweater up by, and then I'm just making sure that that is marked clearly with my chalk. Once you have that straight line and you're happy with it, I'm going in with my ruler and my rotary cutter, and I'm just going to cut along that line to cut out all of the layers. I'd say take your time doing this because the sweater can be a bit thick, well this one was a bit thick, so just make sure that you're cutting a clean line as much as possible. So I've cut off the bottom, as you can see. Like, I have enough fabric here that I could even make another top from it, so that's probably something that I'm gonna do, and then in the meantime we're gonna work on this. So next steps for this top, now we are going to hem it, and as you've guessed, we are using our favorite twin needles to do a to hem this. So to do that, I'm just going to fold up all the way around by ½ inch, and I'm pinning that with my pins, and then we're going to go around and stitch that on our sewing machine. Now that we've hemmed the bottom, we're going to move on to the sleeve. So for the sleeves, the aim is to make the sleeves a bit shorter, and to do that we're going to uncuff it and then reattach it higher up. But to do that we need our seam ripper, and basically what we're going to do is we're going to seam rip that all the way off. So we're finding the attaching seam or the threads, and we're just going to push the seam ripper up and rip all the way around, granted taking our time because we don't want to poke any holes in the cuff of the sleeve, which will make it so much harder to reattach. So yeah, taking my time and seam ripping both of the cuff sleeves. So once we have seamed ripped the cuff sleeves, this is what it should look like, and then we want to take our time and pull out all of those little threads, just so that we have a clean cuff sleeve to work with, so that when we reattach it there's no little threads poking out. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and do that for this sleeve and then the other sleeve as well. So again, I've tried the sweater on off camera, and I've just marked with chalk, as you can see, how high I want the sleeve to be taken up by, and then I'm going ahead and using my tape measure and my ruler just to make sure that that line is straight all the way across. And then granted, the same length that I take it up by for this sleeve is the same length that I will take it up by for the other sleeve, so just bear that in mind as well. If you need to write down that measurement to remember it, then you can do that. If you want to save a bit of time, what you can do as well is line up the sleeves together like I've done here. So just make sure that it's matching all the way from the top of the sleeve or your shoulder down to the bottom. And then I'm grabbing my cutting mat and my razor cutter again, and I'm just going ahead and cutting along that chalk line. So I'm cutting both sleeves at the same time, and again, just make sure you take your time so you get a clean cut when you're doing this as well. So I have my shortened sleeves here, but then I looked at it and thought, if I add the cuff sleeve to this, I'm going to end up with a very kind of bubble hem or cuff sleeve, if that makes sense at all. And I really don't want that. So I used the cardigan that I had on kind of as a reference point to mark out how wide I want the actual cuff sleeve or the sleeve to be, and then I marked that onto the fabric, as you can see, and then I'm just going to mark that point and then gauge how much I want to take in the entire sweater by. So initially I just marked from the sleeve, but you'll see in a sec that I went back in and took in from all the way from the bottom of the top to the sleeve as well. So I'm just going to make sure that I've marked that out with my chalk. Sorry, so that is a clean line going all the way from the hem to the very top of the sleeve. So I'm pinning along the chalk line so it's clear where we're stitching and holding that in place, and then once I have pinned it, I want to mimic the same thing for the other side of the sweater. So I folded it in half and I kind of felt through to see where the pins were and marked on the opposite side, and then went back in with my chalk and my pins to secure the other side in place as well, just to make sure that it's symmetrical and we're taking it in by the same amount on both sides as well. So we have stitched both of those sides, and now I'm just trimming off the seam allowance on both of those sides as well, and now we can move on to actually adding the cuffed sleeve. So I've taken in the sides and the seam all the way around. Now I'm just going to grab my cuffed hem and I'm grabbing the sleeve as well. So I'm lining up the seamed part of the cuff, making sure that it's turned inside out. So this is the outside, this will be the inside. I can just tell because of the way that it kind of sits or fits. So this way looks a bit more natural than this way. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to line up this marking here. So this seam here with the seam of the sleeve. So to do that, I'm just going to kind of put it inside. I'm inserting the cuff inside of the sleeve, and I'm just going to grab a pin to pin that in place so the seams are lining up and matching perfectly. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to feel across to feel where the end of this cuff is, which is here, and I'm going to find where the other side of the sleeve is. I can see a bit of an indentation here, hopefully you guys can see that. So that is what I'm going to match up with the other side of the cuff, and I'm also going to pin that in place, and then I'm just going to grab a couple more pins and pin along around this circle that we're creating here, and then we're going to stitch all the way around. I'm going to use my overcast stitch to do this, just to make sure that those raw edges are quite neat or encased as much as possible, and then that should be the cuff. The thing about the cuff, you want to make sure that you don't have too much fabric, or you're not pulling too much as you're stitching around, but you still want it to fit you snugly. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stitch around this and do it for the other sleeve as well.
Can't focus on me.